like to call to order our working session, Thursday, March 7th, 2019, 5:30 PM. First up is, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, we have a graduation date. That's Jessica. Hello. How are you?
Good.
Good.
This is the fun stuff. Thank you. So just looking at graduation ceremonies coming up, I would like to propose at the board meeting that we look at Friday, May 24th being the graduation night for everyone. TNHS would be first up this year, and Nelson County would follow at 7:30. This, again, would only fall into place as long as we miss no days between now and then.
Assuming all things stay the same.
Yes,
It is.
it is.
Yes.
Feeling good about it. So just wanted to let you know the date that we have on our minds, and we're going to go with that. Any questions?
And that's Memorial Day weekend, isn't it?
It is. It's the Friday before Memorial Day.
Good.
It'll be a nice long celebrating weekend for everybody.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Item B, under dedicated to our community, we have early childhood education registration. Hey, ladies, how are you?
Good. How are you all?
We're just meeting.
Good. I have Miss Henderson with me tonight. She is our early childhood education pathway teacher at Nelson County High School. So we're very fortunate in the district to have one of the very few teachers in the state that provide the CDA credential at the high school level for our students who are moving on into the early child care field or who are transitioning to post-secondary education in that field. So I brought Teresa here because she is the true star of this program. But in the workforce development world, as we really think about excavating gives and providing experiences for our student, we have the goal, the next slide please, that the graduating class of 21, by that August, those seniors will all be enrolled in some type of work-based experience. And as we think about those work-based experiences, we have 8 options for our students. And the option that we're going to be talking about tonight is that apprenticeship option, the one on the far left. So if you go to the next slide, it shows our other options, but really focusing on the discussion tonight, asking that the Nelson County school system become a registered apprenticeship program in early childhood education. So next slide. So what does this mean? This means that we would register through the Kentucky Office of Apprenticeship, and that Miss Henderson's class and the time that she spends with students would be on-the-job training that would go toward a registered apprenticeship program, and that we would be the provider of that program, providing 4,000 hours of training and on-the-job experiences. So we would hire 2 students who would be apprentices in this program with the expectation that we are investing in them once they graduate high school. So we are becoming their post-secondary provider through a registered apprenticeship model, with most of the classroom instruction coming through Ms. Henderson, and then on-the-job training through their time at the Early Learning Center. So in order to move forward with this, we need approval from the board, recognizing that we will become the provider of that post-secondary program, and that will be given to the Office of Apprenticeship for final approval.
So is this the same apprenticeship program through the Department of Labor?
Yep. So, and I think this also provides the opportunity to think about what other apprenticeship type programs could the district be a part of. And that also helps in our communication with employers when we visit with employers and we say we're investing as an apprenticeship program, and we can provide additional support because we've been doing this ourselves. So it's just like any type of apprenticeship program that you'd see in the manufacturing and trades world.
Well, it's a great place to start because this is our sweet spot, education. I see 4,000 hours, though. Is that over a 2-year period?
Do you want
Well, it's the 4,000 hours is either in-class work, so training that they have in class with me, completing their child development associates with me, and other training as well goes towards that 4,000 plus actually working.
Okay.
So those two combined create the 4,000 hours over time. So depending on if they get completed with their CDA through me, the CDA itself is worth 500, plus then the classwork on top of it. They might be walking into a registered apprentice with already 1,000 hours. And so
Okay.
you might see them for an additional year, year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
But it will help sustain growth, filling those positions that they already need at Nelson County Early Learning Center and keeping our students local, being able to continue their education and filtering back into the system.
CDA, what is that?
Child Development Associates credential.
Okay.
It's a nationally recognized credential. They have to go through Washington DC to be able to do this. They have to take a national exam. They also have to have a professional development specialist come in and observe them in the classroom to teach. They have to have a pre-conference with them, post-conference, and then they have to create this wonderfully huge portfolio of lesson plans, et cetera. I mean, it's like they have to get a 3-inch binder proving that they are successful in the classroom and implementing.
Okay, and now give me some examples of what these students will do after they achieve this credential. What will they do afterwards? Like, where can they go?
So the CDA is worth college credits. It's worth up to 9 college credits as of right now if they continue their IECE at ECTC. So their IEC is their interdisciplinary early childhood education, which they would be a preschool to kindergarten teacher. So they would be able to be hired directly through the Nelson County Early Learning Center once they complete their 4-year degree, their teaching cert. So that CDA goes directly towards their IECE, which I try to tell students, don't just stop at an associate's, go the full 4 years, because the difference for them between an associate's and a 4-year is going to be a teacher assistant or the lead teacher.
Gotcha.
And
They can work on class, they can work on class if they work with you.
That's right.
If they want to go ahead for the associate, that they can still come through us, through the 4 years high school, get the 2-year associate, and still be on your path. That-
It's
Yes.
something that we've met with Elizabethtown Community and Technical College. We're also asking, could those 4,000 hours be transcripted, and how much additional time would that be toward the associates that leads to the bachelor's degree? And students being able to take those on-the-job training hours and they transcript toward coursework toward a bachelor's.
I just want to make sure they can work on both sides while they get you, but I want them to be able to walk as they stay with an associate.
So they're completing their CDAs their junior years.
Yes. that's
So
what-
senior year, they would go into a registered apprenticeship. So they would be taking either college classes, they're already completed with the coursework with that credential, and they would be into the registered apprenticeship their senior year for the 4 periods over at the Nelson County Early Learning Center.
Now, will they also receive a certification after they complete the apprenticeship to where essentially they're going to have 2 then,
Mhm.
right? So
It'll
they'll
be
have
a journeyman.
Right, so then they'll have the apprenticeship completed, and then they'll have the CDA, right? Okay. So then the students who, let's say, make the decision that they don't want to go, further into their education, we would all hope that they do, but if they decide not to, they still have an avenue and to find suitable work.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay.
The good news is we've got one of the best family consumer science teachers in the state.
That's right, she's the star. That's
So
it.
blushing.
So that's right there. That's where it is.
You get it up.
There's only maybe 2 other teachers in the state that do what she's doing, and it's because she encouraged them to do so. So she's well recognized in the state.
So you're
for her
patient
work.
0.
I guess.
I think the work that we're talking about doing with early childhood literacy and some of this conversation that we've been having will really play well into that.
Okay. I think it's great.
I didn't mean to say she, because you're right there. You will still be able to guide in what we're trying to accomplish with K through 2, reading and that aspect of it, yes or no?
She doesn't know a lot about that yet,
Oh,
because she's teaching in high school.
Yeah, if
yeah, I
you think
know,
about
but
it,
I'm just
they're-
saying,
Yeah, absolutely.
yes, yeah.
we're putting-
And the registered apprentice
Yeah.
will be underneath the Polly Walker and
Yes.
be having the same training
Okay,
as the teachers that are there.
Yeah.
If you had to kind of give just a gut number right now, I mean, how many students do you see right now that we've got ready to start and would be raising their hand to say, we want to do this?
So I have 13.
Okay.
It's good.
Yes, I have 13, and I'm projected probably anywhere from 20 to 25 coming up.
So you're
I
gonna be
have.
busy.
Yes.
Well, there's great need for it.
There is, and that's why I'm connecting with other centers as well, because I do have some very great qualified individuals that want to go this pathway, and we need to create opportunities for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So which high school are you in?
Nelson County High School.
And so if kids at Thomas Nelson want to do this program, do they then just come over there, or how's that work?
That's a great question.
That's an excellent question. And I think as we think about growing pathways and opportunities that.
I think it's a good example of where we want to offer flexibility for obvious reasons.
So they're not right now?
So we agree to this, and then do we, I mean, I just think in the interest of equity that we let,
Well, so I would think there would be one of these where we got to start possibly looking at it like we do with Air Force ROTC.
that's what I assumed it
Yeah,
was. I was
yeah.
making that,
And because it might be an opportunity, depending on how scheduling works, it's probably going to, if we were able to do that, would require some creative scheduling.
Laura's
with-
thinking about it every day.
Yeah, Thomas Nelson and Nelson County, so.
Yeah, no, I think it's, yeah.
It's all about finding ways to say get to yes and not to go, well, we just can't do it.
well, we have to do it. It's not really an option.
No,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
You're right.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding us all.
Oh,
No, it's good.
Good job.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I think it's exactly, this is the type of conversation that we need to continue to have. So, thank you, Ms. Henderson, for leading.
Thank you for all your
Thank you.
work.
You can take it off. Okay, I'll just pass it on to Nick.
You want a sugar-free cinnamon disc?
Now we have C is personal service contract.
So as we think about growing work-based experiences, we know it's going to involve many people being at the table and also being very conscientious in resources and how we also partner with external groups to provide resources. So we have an opportunity with this contract to work with the Lake Cumberland Ag District. So they work with the Lincoln Trail Workforce Board. And they have funds that they can do contracts with school districts to embed resources and people within the district that can work with students who are seniors in high school who have not determined what their post-secondary education may look like, nor are they sure about what they're going to do work-wise if they choose to go into the world of work. So they have funds where we can place someone here to work with Amber Godey and David Mudd at the high schools to identify candidates that aren't sure of what they want to do. Then they provide funding to employers where we could give employers up to $8 an hour to hire these students during the summer. And then our person that we're using these funds for would touch base with the students, work with the employer, and support them throughout the summer. And then once August gets here, August 30, the students may continue to stay on with the employer and the employer take them on full-time, or our resources can be used to help connect them to post-secondary education if they chose to do that. So this is a contract. We're kind of doing this to see how it works from now till August 30, with hopes if we're successful with this, there could be opportunities to continue this type of partnership.
Is it like a co-op?
So this individual would help place students in work experience that would be very similar to a
Yes.
co-op.
Okay.
This is a position paid for by an outside entity
Federal funds.
that also has funds that will help subsidize the hourly salary in their co-op placement. And they'll also be trying to help other students identify what their next steps are. And it costs us that.
And how did you find
That's
this?
what
So there are 10 workforce boards in the state of Kentucky, and we're a part of the Lincoln Trail Workforce Board. So we have started attending those meetings, Amber, David, and I, and being at the table in that conversation, and came up
Thank
with
you.
discussion, and
So this would be free, in a sense, it is free. However, we'd be allocating resources internally to make sure it's successful. Additionally, I think as we continue to think about the value of this resource allocation, it's going to probably beg us to think about how are we extending our reach as a district team to support other opportunities like this in the future, especially for students that are going to be more, they're going to be in really, you need a close monitoring process. So, I guess my point is, this is just kind of scratching the surface where we can go.
I think it could open the door for many other opportunities to have access to this support.
So this Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board is the one that we would be working through.
Yes, and it comes through what they call WIOA funds, so it's Workforce Innovation something opportunity funds. So they're federal funds, and it's to help support workforce development and getting people to work and to think about post-secondary education. They even have funds they can help pay for post-secondary education for these students.
So, and while I'm asking, so while she was talking, I did a quick Google, and it's kwid.ky.gov. I'm sure you would especially be interested in kind of reading through some of the other pieces of it if you haven't already.
Well, I mean, it's just another way that a student may find out and may not find out what they want. You know,
And it
another
might be helpful
opportunity.
to some students.
Yeah, another opportunity.
Is it still in its zygote state, or I mean, has this been around in regards to the Lincoln Trail's knowledge of it and now ours, but how long?
It's new to this area, so Southern Kentucky they've utilized funds like this in Southern Kentucky for a while, but Lincoln Trail is kind of new to grasping on, especially the partnerships with school districts where we utilize like Amber and David, counselors, to connect and help make these connections. So it's kind of new to our area.
Because of the need in manufacturing. We're desperate. In 5 years, we're really gonna be hurt.
So if Joanne wants to hire some students, we'll send them to you this summer with this program.
18 at this point, but
Great.
I think I have the next, do I have the next one?
The clicker right there works in front of you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just so you know.
I didn't realize that, okay. Sorry.
Okay, under Innovate and Grow, the new skills for youth partnership, and that would be, okay, how are you?
I'm fine, and you? So Kim and I are going to tag team on this. As we think about workforce development, another aspect of this is really diving into career pathway development and thinking about a student as they enter their freshman year of high school and helping them make wise choices to think about what does an associate or bachelor's degree look like. And last month we had conversations around resource allocation and programming. One of the things that you all supported was the development of an engineering pathway. So we will be using Project Lead the Way curriculum. It's very much supported by our big manufacturers like Toyota, and we will be posting that position soon and getting a teacher in here. And some of this work with the engineering pathway has come about as a result of the New Skills for Youth partnership. And this is a regional collaboration with us and other districts that Kim will talk about in a few minutes. But as we think about this partnership, it also impacts funds that we're using within the workforce development arena and what we do there. And what we wanted to discuss tonight was to continue this partnership in the growth of pathways. So that includes our engineering pathway. We're also adding our teaching and learning pathway with existing staff that we have in-house. We've done revisions to welding, where we've now aligned it to an Associates of Applied Science in Welding. And in order to do this, and to do it collaboratively with other districts and really thinking about our region, thinking about what do employers in our region need. We need access to people and resources to support these pathways. So Kim Hogan this year has served as our New Skills for Youth coordinator, and she has worked with the partnering districts that are a part of this agreement, and we're asking to be able to continue that coordinator role so we can pull districts together to really talk about what's needed in our area and region. So we're asking, or we'll be using $10,000 from the workforce development funds to support this coordinator position. And then also we'll be putting in $10,000 per district, and Kim will talk about those other districts in a minute, to support those new pathways that we're developing. So as we think about that Associates of Applied Science in Welding, we know that Elizabeth County Community and Technical College wants kids to have certain experiences that align to those dual credit opportunities. So we're putting funds in to support supplies and materials that would support that Associates of Applied Science. Also our teaching and learning pathways, we think about cost associated with that. So we'll be putting $10,000, so it would be a total of $20,000 to continue to support this regional collaborative of New Skills for Youth, where we're really talking about those regionalized pathways that align to the needs of our employers. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim to talk a little bit about our partnership and where we are with that.
This New Skills for Youth regional collaboration is between employers in our region as well as some other school districts, and they're Bardstown, LaRue County, and Marion County. So if you think about our employers in the region and the ask that we have for them to help us with students and getting these work-based opportunities and the resources for them to come in and help, along with the financial resources that each of our schools ask for, it just makes sense that we would do this regionally. We have some pathways like the teaching pathway that are low cost. We have the resources inside the schools to be able to do them, and then we have other pathways that can be very expensive. And if we approach that from a regional standpoint, and all of the school districts are pulling their resources together, such as the coordinator and the needed supplies that we need to start these pathways next year, it just makes sense for us to do that because we're able to expand the pathway opportunities that we provide to our students a lot sooner, and we have better resources and equipment that's more up to date to let the students learn on. So that's where this regional approach comes from. We met with the Bardstown City School Board and the LaRue County Board about 3 weeks ago, and they've approved this approach with the money for the coordinator position as well as the money for resources. So as long as everything's approved through Nelson County, then we'll proceed.
And then do we still have Marion County yet to talk with? or-
Yes.
Okay.
Their next board meeting, I believe, is on the 14th, and I'm going there to present to them as well.
So, our part in this is 20,000. That would be our contribution to the partnership.
To start the pathways that will start
Financial.
next year, yes.
Not in, that's in addition to the teacher that we allocated to.
And
Now
whenever,
that-
I'm just gonna say, whenever you're talking about the pathways too, so I'm trying to think to myself, so where is this occurring? How's it happening? I hear about a teacher. Is this gonna be through the Area Technology Center?
Well, the teaching and learning pathway will be inside the high schools
Okay.
because the resources
Sure.
are already
Okay.
available
That makes
there.
sense.
And then the other pathways that we're starting will be out of the Nelson County Area Technology Center, as well as Marion County Area Technology Center will be offering some as well. Our students next year will be going to Nelson County.
Okay, and of course, the Bardstown students then, that maybe if it was one of the career pathways that was being offered at the ATC, would be coming here. LaRue County, they may go to either Marion or us, possibly.
Next year, they'll be coming to Nelson County
Okay.
because it's their first time. They won't have as many students starting in that process.
Gotcha.
And they'll be coming to Nelson County as well.
Okay,
How are they getting here?
By bus, they approved a bus. They will have a wired bus, and students will be using their laptops on the bus to work on project work on the way. And then,
That's what Shelby County does.
yeah. Yes.
That was about what I was gonna ask. So our part in it is 20,000, correct? Okay, does that, I hate to ask this, how much is the teacher gonna cost?
Well, the teacher was approved in the Project Lead the Way portion of this. What the 20,000 tonight goes for is the coordinator position for next year to continue the collaboration between businesses and the other districts, and to work with post-secondary partners on expanding the pathway opportunities that we offer, because hopefully the following school year, the plan is we would be offering additional pathways for students. So that's the work that the coordinator would be doing. The other $10,000 is for resources and consumables that students will be using as they're in these pathways.
Can you give me an example of some pathways?
Yes, there's a welding pathway, the teaching and learning, of course. There's some health sciences pathways. There's the engineering pathway, electrical, and construction. And they've all been drawn out 9 through 12, 14, 16, however many years the student is involved in that pathway. Yes,
Okay.
yes, they're listed there on the previous slide.
Yeah, on
if
the
you
first
want.
slide of this slide deck, it has 4 circles at the top so that we can go back and look at it if we need to remember.
And your construction and electrical, those are apprenticeship routes. So they're pre-apprenticeships that have been approved by different registered apprenticeship programs that students could put those hours toward the apprenticeship, kind of like what we're doing with the early childhood apprenticeship.
So this is what ours will look like. I mean, like, these are all of the pathways, like right there, that we're gonna,
That you're gonna take care of,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
part is paid for.
because like the
And
information
teaching
tech, the
and
robotics
training.
and coding, that's not.
That's
gonna
not
be in
it.
place.
So that's the vision. That's the
That's the
original,
hope, so.
that's the original vision of where we wanted to go. Now, we don't have them all yet.
And your issue is, we have programs at the Area Technology Center, but they are not connected to post-secondary. So this work is providing post-secondary credentials to students while they're in high school. So revamping those and really making a connection to employers and post-secondary.
So for instance, like on information tech, I know we have information technology courses, various courses that are going on at the ATC, but they're not aligned right now is what I'm hearing you. This is also going to help us do that so that it's not just Daniel or Cody Arnold, that are taking that class. It's taking that class that then aligns them to
Yes, so we've worked with Mr. Cantrell this past year. We've identified 2 courses that will be dual credit and
Okay.
going into next fall.
I don't have a problem with any of it. Where I have it's not a problem, it's more of a concern, that those students, when they get on that bus in Marion County or
LaRue County.
LaRue County, and if they come over here, we're talking about miles of, and don't say just because that bus is wired up. You know where I'm getting this? I think that's a lot of time lost out of school, and when they get back on that bus and go back to their direction, if we're counting on time spent in classroom or time spent in education, to me, that's a lot of time lost, just out of a week or out of a day, because you can't drive 60 miles, well, yeah, some of them do, but you can't drive like that from Bardstown to Marion County and not lose some kind of part of the
But isn't
day.
this when LaRue County is committing to this program? I mean, I know
Yeah, but
Henry.
we're talking about Marion County coming.
No, that's not
No.
what was said, it was LaRue County.
LaRue County.
Marion County's involved in the regional collaboration, but they have their own area technology center.
Well, even if it's
but-
LaRue County, I'm talking about just getting on a bus
Well,
and
if
coming over.
I remember right, with Shelby County, because they're regional too.
Mhm.
And so they have
Yes.
different counties that come to them. And that was brought up too, that they do that. And like from Taylor County, they'll come in from it. And I don't think there was a problem
No,
in it. No,
yes.
there wasn't a problem because they had, I think their computers or whatever, and so they were actually doing work. When
That's what I'm saying, the buses are wired for internet, so they have the
I
project.
know that,
wired.
but I'm just saying,
Well,
y'all know how it
It's,
goes.
it's going to, it's
You know
going
how
to be
it
that
goes on a
it's-
bus.
But it's going to be that it's structured time for them. I know Henry County.
It's in there too.
Well,
Yes.
not only do they do that one, but Henry County also has students that go to Bellarmine. And they spend that time on that bus as needed constructively because they have that internet connection, their Chromebook, whatever the case may be. So, I mean, it's going to be that it has to have some structure to it, but,
Yeah, and
you know, that's going to be what LaRue County, working along with, like whether it's Mr. Cantrell or whomever might be in this pathway, are structuring that time to where they may, some days they may not be using that internet connection, but then there's also opportunities on days where they may be working on something.
Well, and some of them are taking online courses.
That they could be
through
using that
ECTC,
time as well.
And they're
so.
using that time for that.
Part of the model, though, that was, the New Skills for Youth is built around is the assumption that these students, when they return into the workforce, will be traveling to work. So, just like my father who traveled 50 minutes, 55 minutes every day for 40 years to work. So, the regional model assumes that there's transportation involved, and that's the only way that kids are going to have access. I think this also speaks to the power of this opportunity. They wouldn't be coming over here on a bus and spending a significant amount of money if it wasn't a great opportunity.
And they weren't committed to it, yeah. I mean, and this is one of those to me where we find the ways to say yes and make it happen. And again, and there's probably going to be things, I assume that LaRue County is going to discover that maybe they have to tweak a little bit with their students. But
And the issue is these pathways are aligned to the high demand jobs. So Kentucky's provided data saying over the next 10 years, here's where the hot jobs are. So we're aligning pathways where there are future opportunities for students.
I'm not sure if New Skills for Youth is going to come back up this year, but I just wanted to celebrate Kim's work this year, working with these districts as a magician to satiate the various needs of boards and superintendents, and she's been fantastic, so thank you for that.
Thank you. I work with a great team.
Yes, thank you very much.
I just love it.
Let's just step up.
Thank you all for finishing that. Somebody else's turn.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our next is Mr. Goff.
Good evening. So, I believe you have a copy of the NTI pre-application somewhere in front of you. One of the things that Kentucky Board of Education requires is that this be in 120 school days before the start of the next school year in order to get approval. And so if you look at the dates, our April board meeting is about a week too late for the 120 days to be met, which is why in March, at the March board meeting, you would need to approve us to commit to NTI days for the next school year. This has been in my first experience with NTI. I believe we've challenged our schools prior to these days occurring to really rethink what is possible on those days. I will commend both high schools. They've created some community-centered courses really to really think about how they engage community, cross-curricular units that are really authentic and embedded kind of into the storyline of each high school. So they've done some really great work. We've had some other schools across the district that have really rethought what those days consist of. So the application that you will have in front of you that you will vote to approve at the March meeting simply is it's a re-application. It's not very extensive, and really what it says is that we commit to doing it. There's not any massive changes because it's a very broad application. We don't have to get specific with really anything other than what kind of your goals are, your plans. We will use a similar model of a kind of a balance between Google Classroom, technology, and project-based learning, cross-curricular units like our high schools have really explored this year. So it really says the same thing that's similar. The one thing that is a little unique is that we're looking at cafeteria and what happens with our cafeteria workers. It's something you explicitly have to talk about in the application. And Ms. Geese-Hogue is working on what that will look like for them. But that will be the request in March, is that you approve us to do NTI days again next year. It's very similar to this year. It'll be up to 10 days. So that's that process. Do you all have any questions or feedback on that?
Great job.
All right. The next one is 2 field trips. The first one is for a student during the STLP regionals, which was rescheduled and rescheduled and rescheduled because of snow. was selected from Thomas Nelson to be at Kisti next week. What are their positions called?
STLP junior engineers or STLP engineers.
Engineers. So they really, Kisti is the state technology conference, and there are students from across the state that do the technology support for that technology conference. So we had a student from Thomas Nelson High School that interviewed and was selected to participate in that. So that is the first one that you see there. And then the second one is for Thomas Nelson was selected, several of their students were selected, I think about 12 of their kids, to go to the state speech and debate competition as well. So those were competitions that they had got selected for. Those are going to happen before the March board meeting when they found out, which is why you're going to be asked tonight to approve those requests.
I'll throw in one quick thing too on the STLP kids. So I know Mr. Brooks knows a couple of our former, Chandler Young, who graduated several years ago, Posey girl, also was one from here. Currently we got Cody Arnold from Nelson County High School. Now it's another student for Thomas Nelson. So, I mean, the Nelson County high schools here are just racking up students. And this isn't, I mean, they are being interviewed by some of my co-workers, the Jesse Morgan type people in districts. So it's not just, well, you apply, you're picked. I mean, they've got a lot of questions they're asked, and these students are tasked with taking care of 2,000 adult educators next week. Everything from, I can't get to my Google Drive and the presentation starts in 2 minutes, help me, to I can't get the app to work to know where the next session is I need to go to. And they're on call almost 24/7 from Tuesday through Friday next week.
We got to go to Kisti last year, and it was very impressive. I mean, it's student leadership at its best, really, to watch those kids. They're not just there to witness it; they're there doing stuff.
The L is the most important part of STLP. It is the leadership piece, like you said. And some of these kids have gone on. One of them works for Google now, from about 10 years ago. We've got them that are working for Microsoft. And they're not just little entry-level, like help desk people. I mean, these are people that are flying around the world with these companies, and they're 25 years old.
So I need a motion to approve the out-of-state field trips as presented. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Ms. Breedy made the motion. Do I hear a second? Mr. Rick Dickerson, second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Thank you all.
Next one is to put people first. We have Ms. McCoy on the ACA visioning and school change.
Yeah, so it's an exciting night as we begin thinking about I got it. Creating an identity for our alternative school right now. And so each year, actually, the board has to review the policies and procedures around the operation of an alternative education program. And so tonight, I'm going to bring to you the purpose, and with the purpose, you're going to hear some significant changes and some exciting work that we're hoping to do with your blessing. So tonight, we're going to do purpose review, and then I'll bring to you for your blessing. It doesn't require approval, but we want, of course, your support in a school change review that I'll talk more about. In May, I'll bring eligibility and transition process, and then in June, you'll get the final policy for approval. Okay, so let's take a look at the potential future of our alternative school. So we know that we really want to focus on the priorities that are within our district around caretaking, and we know we want to do caretaking through this center through restorative practices. We want to create community-centered learning experiences for all kids, but really in excavating their purpose and passion, it's what they need the most is that caretaking piece coupled with purpose and passion, which makes them successful. And then work-based learning for all students with some specialized work for them, new opportunities for them to take hold of that. And so you see at the bottom what we want to now create there are 3 separate programs. It's not too much different from what's there, it just provides more clarity, more purpose,
and more understanding about the practices we will actually use in the buildings. So the first one, and it incorporates the school change, and the fact that we would like Program 1 to accept students K through 12. We know across the board in our schools we have kids that have experienced extreme trauma or adverse childhood experiences, and we know trauma works like this on the brain. It causes a scar on the brain, and it doesn't mean that it can't be overcome or healed, but we have to do very intensive therapeutic work to make that happen for a kid. And so we want to create a program where we're able to serve those most at needs. And I'll show on the last slide the eligibility for a program like this, that we can say their needs have demonstrated to the need for a therapeutic small environment that we can really treat them, both creating an academic experience coupled with a behavioral experience for them. So that's the school change review process. And then Program 2, and it's a K-12 model. Program 2 is a 9 through 12, and really there's 2 prongs to this. One would be for kids that we see who really need something different from the traditional learning environment, and so there's some flexible options for them of them coming and going via performance-based coursework for them. And then other kids who need to be there all day, but they need a very small, structured environment, but they don't necessarily meet their requirements for a Program 1 where it's very intensive therapeutic responses there. On the last page, I'll give more information. And then the last one, we have this now. We call it ISS, and we want to move to calling it Restore. Kids that, and this includes kids that really have made a bad decision, either emotionally or behaviorally in their school. They need a short-term removal. And we see this as you've harmed the community in some way. And you need a reprieve yourself, and the school, other kids may need a reprieve, and we need to kind of get you out. But the process we want to put in here is that they have actual actions that they do in the Restore unit, including reflection on their actions, recovery from their actions, and restoring them back to the community. So when they harm the community, they then restore themselves and make plans for restoring themselves back into healing the community. And so those practices will go into that room, or those couple of rooms, and we'll call it Restore. We don't want to go with Program 1 and Program 2. Those names will come later for your all's approval. We love the name Restore, so that's why it's on there. And so we will ask for your approval in June for that. But then Program 1 and Program 2, they'll get lost in those names. Those are terrible. On this one, it's just a slide to show you kind of the direction that we really want to put in place for kids, that there is an identity and a purpose for the learning that goes on in this school that's not just a negative. An alternative school has a very negative connotation. It always does in every district. But really, we want to change that storyline for these kids and saying, you deserve the care and belonging to work collaboratively, to show your unique gifts, with the understanding that we know that you've gone through this. We're here to help you and either restore you back to the high schools originally, or the middle school or the elementary school, or to restore you to our community so you're successful adults. So it goes into creativity and communication, and the fact that all kids across our district are aligned to the pride values and these kind of experiences. I want to show you a little bit of what we have in mind for their actual experience. So their academic experience will look a little bit different, and we'll bring more to that when I come in June. But a Care and Connect. We have Care and Connect in our high schools right now. We have family structures. We are thinking about a house structure and what we would like to call the tribe. Restorative care in all classrooms, focused behavior expectations, workforce development for all kids, counseling in that therapeutic nature, and a digital instructor-based hybrid approach for instruction. And so this really gets into the details of who would be eligible. And so I'll bring eligibility more closely for your approval later, May and June. But I wanted you to get an idea of what are we thinking here for kids that would belong to this program. Like I said, we know kids that are younger, the plasticity of their brain is so greater than it is later in life. And we really want to be able to target these kids who have been diagnosed with emotional disorders that are best served in a small therapeutic environment.
that kids who have made attempts or ideation of self-harm, our youngest kids are doing this as well. And right now, there's not a way to provide them a therapeutic, small environment to meet their needs, both in harming themselves, but then in threatening others as well. Display of uncontrolled aggression, best served in a small therapeutic environment, and intermediate placement from a residential setting. We don't have a day treatment in our county. And so we are getting kids back from residential placement and coming right back into a 900 or a 800 and 700 student body population, and it is extremely difficult for them to succeed in that environment. And we want to provide a transition environment for them to eventually transition back. So program 1, looking at, see those numbers there of a K2 unit and a 3-5 unit, a middle school and a high school. It's small because of the behavior note. Then, no, oh yeah, it says 15. Did you think it said 75?
No, I'll ask you after your.
Okay, sure. And then program 2, that's more for our kids that really need flexibility. And so you may be homeless, migrant, you may be a primary family income provider, or a primary caregiver. And your need, not that every kid would fit that need an alternative school placement, obviously, but your need determines flexible options for you. That you can come to school for seminars and do some work at home and have a work-based experience and all that's happening from that. And we can also add in, because we'll have the therapeutic units here, we could also have some therapy options for these kids that a lot of kids would want an option like this that suffer from anxiety and a really large classroom experience, and so they could have this placement as well. We'll also have a full day placement in this, so you'll see a 1 full day classroom unit of approximately 30 kids, 1 flexible classroom unit, and this is, they are able to come and go based on their work placement. And so 50 kids, but you never have 50 kids in the building all at one time. And then 1 full 45-day placement program. A 45-day placement we are piloting this year because kids that get into fights or use drugs on our campuses, or were found to be intoxicated or under the influence on our campuses, we are requiring that they have a 45-day placement with us, and that allows us to serve the needs. These kids, when they're coming under the influence or of drugs or alcohol, they need help. It's a cry for help. They're saying, if they're doing it at school, I can't imagine what's going on outside of school. And so for us to really focus and hone in our attention, or if they're fighting, what are they doing with their aggression that they need help so we can solve that, or help solve that. And then the last one, of course, is the Restore program, the middle school and a high school unit. So you'll see program 2 is for high school, Restore is for middle school and high school, and program 1 is for the K-12. And Restore is the old ISS becoming the Restore program. And so today, we're really just asking for your blessing to continue forward and to ask any questions that you need to in our request for approval from KDE to do a school change. So you had a question, Diane.
I'm glad we're doing something with ISS. That's just, to me, that was waste to me, in my opinion. Where I'm concerned, asking about is on the 15 students, because I think, because I work there, I think there's more than 15 at one time that need help. So to let a student just sit in the classroom and do nothing while they wait a turn, I'm not in favor of that.
We actually looked at some data. Who are our most, they're caused under this diagnosis of a emotional disorder. No, she's talking about program 1. And across the board, we see about the need for 15. But that's why there's 2 prongs in program 1 for a full day unit of another 30 kids. Because you're saying probably some defiance, but you're not probably saying defiance to the extent of an emotional disorder, or not even emotional disorder, but self-harm or targeted harm towards others. Those units will be very intensive. And across the board, we see the data showing us, yes, we could probably use a couple more spaces, but 15 is really where we are right now. But the full day classroom, we needed that.
For program 2?
For program 2.
That's what I
So
was
you may
thinking.
see a kid, so the second bullet in the blue says long-term placements due to deficiencies in credits coupled with behavioral concerns. So that's your kids where they're just being defiant and and they're not making credits, but they don't necessarily need a therapeutic half-day type of experience, but they need a smaller environment to be able to succeed. Sort of what we have now, but really coupled with a couple different experiences that they have.
Okay, so you're telling us that there's two different, program 1 and program 2, one's half-day and one's full-day.
Well, not half-day. They're all, okay, so all of them are full-day except for program 2 in the flexible classroom unit.
Okay,
That is where kids may come for a seminar and leave to go to work or leave to have their courses at home through like a homeschool type curriculum. But everybody else is full day.
now where did you get this model?
So, one, I drafted, I've been thinking a lot about alternative school programming, and then I went to a couple schools in our districts and did some visits. So Corbin Independent does a similar model to this. JCPS, I went and visited JCPS to see how are you treating your most vulnerable kids, because they have the kids that are violent offenders that we don't actually even have the extent of what they're dealing with. And so I looked at that model, I looked at the one in JCPS, we've looked at Warren County to say, what can we create? You know, and we can't adopt exactly what they've created because it doesn't meet our needs in Nelson. And so I put together what can meet the needs that I've seen, both as a school counselor and this perspective across the district, to meet those kids' needs.
Okay, another question. Will we have a mental health person?
So in staffing this, we will hope to have what we're looking at. And again, I just want to preface this too. There aren't any financial, you're not paying anything extra for creating a program like this. We will be restructuring a little bit in the sense we want to add 2 school counselors. One potentially has the social work background for kids. And then you all approved the contract to partner with a behavioral program with Communicare and offer intensive services for kids. And so there's a tiered support plan, a tier 1, 2, and 3 of how we'll address the major concerns.
Okay, 'cause the thing I'm concerned about is I would like to see a full-time mental health person.
Well, and that's the 2 school counselors. One of them we're hoping to be a somewhat, or possibly it could be a social worker, the clinical social worker.
I start
Not
saying,
probably what you're
yes,
thinking
because there's a
of.
big difference between.
We would be looking at a clinical social worker to offer mental health services full-time.
Okay, that's where my concern, because you
Yeah.
know yourself, we have a lot of kids that have.
And right, and you're
Problems.
saying, if you see in the red box, these kids are displaying concerning behaviors to an
Yes.
extent that they're going to have the therapeutic response.
Yes.
So-
We all know Communicare is overburdened, overworked, over
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
And we need to give help to these students as often and as quickly as.
Yeah.
as we
And so
can.
we'll partner with Communicare as well as have these 2 additional staff members,
Yes.
not additional, but just changes in staffing to be able to meet those
That
needs.
sounds better. Yes,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And I'm sure that you're working through the logistics part of this and to ensure that, you know, things like the kindergartners aren't
Yes.
really exposed to the high schoolers and, you know,
Right.
I don't want to see,
So.
I don't want, I mean, I know that they, you know, they talk, I think, a little
Yeah.
bit of a different language.
Right.
You know, and I don't want
Yeah,
to, I don't
we
want to
do.
expose the
And I think about
kindergartners to
that
that.
too, Diana.
They are too little.
Absolutely, and as a parent of a soon-to-be kindergartner, I'm thinking, what do I want my kid around?
Yeah.
And so we do have a plan and logistics of the building that will come to you and what that looks like to not not sharing lunches. They really will not interact with one another at all for elementary.
I was gonna say, they don't even need to be around.
Right. Yeah.
They don't need to understand.
So, is there some of them that you mentioned, I was kind of curious too, where else we've seen this. If you haven't had the chance, William Cofield High School in Franklin County
No.
it just came into existence during the fall break.
Gotcha.
And listening to I'll call it the 3 scenarios of how, you know, we're going to provide services, probably most of those students would fall in what you're describing as Program 2, whatever its eventual name becomes. One student I got to meet, Abby, who as a high schooler had been in 13 different schools.
Yeah.
Not in high school,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
across her
across the-
educational
yeah.
career. So you do the math, that's an average of 1 per year,
Yeah.
changing to a different school.
Yeah.
And she's on track to graduate. She thought she would never end up graduating, and she finally has found her last school she's going to attend, William Cofield High School. So one, I mean, the academy, you know, so we've had a lot of start and stop with it through the years. I was just trying to remember, I think this building and the Horizons building behind us was built and opened in '07 or '08, I forget, it's about 12 years ago. And we've had various names for the program that'll be there, Horizons, the Academy of Horizons, the Horizons Academy. And of course, some of it also is still continuing to hold the stigma of a school, you know, alternative school or whatever. And that's definitely not what we're trying to do here, is that old traditional A school, so to speak. You know, that's one thing I would hope we continue to think about. How are we going to make a clear break for the new vision? And whether or not it is the academy or whether it's something else, and I'm not hung up on names, I'm just wanting to make sure that it's seen as something that is not that old A school where in the past thinking was, you know what, you keep on getting in fights, you're going to A school, and you're going there, and you're going there, and you're going there, and what it turned into was, I hate to say it this way, but it was almost like a holding place, and that's not what we're about. We don't want to do that. We want to take care of them because, as you just said, they're crying out. So you know, maybe as we talk, or as you think through, you know, what's program 1 called, what's program 2 called, do we need to have a fresh name for this program? And then the other is, will this be identified as a school, as in it'll have a KDE school number? And
Well, we're not pursuing that yet. It would
Okay.
still be an A5 that's connected to the high school, as
Okay.
it currently is. I looked into the KEXAC programs where it becomes your own school. And those, KEXAC is where it's state agency kids. And I don't know that we're ready for that. The
Okay.
funding comes with it, but it also comes with a lot of judges can court order kids into outside of counties into your county, and we need the space right now
Right.
for
Right.
our kids and to serve them as we need to here.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, I think we're game for a name change, or I am for sure.
Well,
So-
and again, I'm not hung on a name, it's just that sometimes, you know, one thing that I think over the past now almost 12 months, we're probably, what, about the 10-month mark? There's been a lot of changes since May 1st of last year.
yeah.
I don't know, I think it's growth, I don't call it change.
Well, I'll call it changes because we're using some different terminology and things that's allowing us to do the growth. How about that?
Right.
And sometimes we need that to be able to make a clear break from things that maybe they haven't failed, but they haven't worked to the way we really envisioned them to work.
And I think too, for the kids that are there, we want to create this identity for them to own their experiences and own their personal growth. And that perhaps comes with a name change as we form the identity of this school. So that's the exciting part for these kids.
We discussed name change just in the last month, but we also discussed, we really weren't necessarily ready for that, but we're
Sure.
certainly excited that you're encouraging it.
Yeah.
Well, again, because, I mean, so honestly.
Well, you have a new logo.
At Cox's, the old Cox's Creek location, for several years, it was the Bardstown City Schools Alternative School, or the A School. I mean, that's the terminology that was used. And with that terminology comes a stigma. And we don't want it to be a stigma. We want it to be an opportunity to really say, you know what, we care about you. And, you know, yeah, we know your life's not perfect, but we're here to try and help you make the best and figure out how to make your way through it. And sometimes it does require a clean break.
This is gonna be really good.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to think about, as I've had experience now at the elementary school level and these kids that need us, and feeling we don't have a way to service them, and to think that there will be a place to serve them and to love on them and to really restore them back to where they should be. So too, one thing that I didn't talk really a whole lot about in program 1 is family support for our K-5s, and asking families to really be a part of that recovery. So that's what I hope is.
Like a family group therapy.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds
badly
of
needed.
things. Yeah.
It really is.
Right. Well, we realize the impact of kids in a program like this, if we just do it at school, and what, without family being involved, there's not much success. We see the rates of that happening, and so to know that families could be involved and that reach out and what that looks like and their commitment, so. Okay. So.
Robert, you
yes.
mentioned, you gave some insight from some other places. How might this beginning structure differ from what you saw? You said that this may not
Yeah.
work for them. What differs there than that would not apply here, or how does this not?
Both of those, both at Cumberland, not in Warren, but in Corbin and JCPS are KEXAC state agency children. And so that's the biggest difference in the fact of the violent offenders. Our district does not, it is a rare case that I get a true violent offender at the younger grades or even the upper grades. We just don't see that we saw in Corbin, that we see in, knock on wood. That's the difference. And so we need to make our program, yes, it needs to serve these kids who are emotionally, something's happened to them, but not necessarily do we have kids bringing guns to our school and threatening kids with a gun at school on a daily basis. And so where JCPS does, and really Corbin, because they're a KEXAC, they have to accept all state agencies. So they may have a kid in another county be placed in their program, and also theirs is within one of their programs. Theirs is a multi-pronged program as well, and one of it is in a hospital for a hospitalization unit. So.
One of the, every January, whenever we have the board appreciation night, we always get like those cards, and, but they're great, seeing students are appreciative. One thing that I've made sure to hang on to was from a young lady who was in our program at the time of Calling Horizons, about thanking us for giving her the opportunity, because she was probably a program too that had bounced to different places, and finally she had that landing spot. I think and that's what we should be about. We should be about giving them those opportunities. So I think this is going to give us that chance to really redefine it.
I hope so. I feel like it will. So, and that's it. Any other questions?
No, I just have a comment, and that is that I am just blown away. This is absolutely kind of collaboration, first of all, the places you went to and looked at, and the type of innovation that I'm just tickled to death to see. I mean, this is clearly what we need in putting people first and putting the students first, so thank you. This was not something that I think was done overnight. I can't imagine the hours you put into this, so just thank you. That's absolutely incredible.
And this kind of work excites me. It's why you guys restructuring and gave me my position is to think outside of the box for some of these kids. So you're welcome.
Well, we've got kids that's all over the charts.
Yeah.
And if we can do anything that has any that's what we need to do.
Yes.
That's just the way I look at it. Yes, thank you.
I'll take your love.
Good job. Okay, Miss Amy Owens, come on down. Just sit here a while with us. Because you've got several items
to this
here.
time of every meeting, don't you? I'm just kidding. Yes, I do have several different items up today, so just be patient as we work through them. Most of them are going to be pretty quick. So our banking services agreement ends currently June 30th, 2019. Board policy requires that we select a new depository every 2 years. It doesn't mean that we have to change, but we do at least have to get the information out there and see what other options are available. Board policy also allows for a 2-year extension, but our current agreement doesn't have that writing in it. Therefore, we do have to go ahead and submit those proposals again. I will be asking for approval at the March board meeting to send out those proposals, or send out those requests for proposal. We would mail them out the day after, and then we would read them on April 9th, and I would be asking for you to approve our depository services in April, because if we do have to change banks, the process of going through that is quite extensive. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that I would be asking for that. It's nothing out of the ordinary, but wanted you to be aware. All right.
Insurance?
Next up. So last month we discussed the fact that we would be sending out a request to look at agents of record, and we did send those out. We mailed those out on February 15th. We mailed out 5 of them. We mailed to Roberts Insurance, USI Insurance, First Insurance Group, Assured Partners, and Roding Insurance to look at either an agent or agents of record for beginning the 2019-2020 school year. Roberts Insurance works only with student accident insurance. That's their focus, that's their expertise, and that they serve 130 to 140 districts in the state of Kentucky. That is what they focus on. The other 4 agencies, 2 of them did say that they provide all services for all, and 2 of them did everything except for student accident. And what I have found out is that a lot of companies just don't even bother with student accident. They know where the expertise is needed, and they let Roberts handle it, and then they do everything else. And so I reviewed all 5 did respond, and I reviewed all 5 with Jesse Rogers that helps with the purchasing aspect of things. And we've narrowed it down to where we really do like Roberts because of their expertise in that area. And we narrowed it down to what we're hoping is going to be Roding or Assured Partners. And so we plan to call those 2 companies back in and actually have a discussion to make sure that the relationship that we start is one that they can truly serve the needs of our district. So I just wanted to give you an update of where we were. So I'm not out, I won't necessarily be asking for approval at the March board meeting. That might happen at the April board meeting. If I can get them in here early enough, I would do that, but that's where I am right now. I did provide those packets of what they mailed to us. They're on the back. There's a couple copies if you wanted to look them over, but as we were evaluating them, we were looking at digital access to the services. We need to spend less time working on claims and things like that and let our insurance agents handle those for us. We also looked at experience with Kentucky school districts. A couple of the agencies that we contacted only had 1 or 2 Kentucky school districts, and we feel that ones that work with more Kentucky school districts will be better able to serve our needs and our expectations. And so those were 2 of the big ones that we looked at, and just really there was a commission versus fee. Most of them said commission. There was one that did a fee. They felt that would save us money, but it concerned me. And because of the way they presented it, and then also just the relationship that we can have. We need a relationship with an agent. We don't just need somebody to provide the service. And so those were the different things we were looking at as we reviewed those packets. And so again, we'll hope to bring the 2 back in and talk to them. Right.
Next is our project graduation grant request.
There is a memo attached to this for you. Karen Boblett and Vanessa Clark have requested to submit a grant. Board policy requires that you approve all grants before they're submitted. This particular one is online, so they couldn't show you the application. But they wanted to make sure that they got approval from you before they applied for it. This will be to go towards project graduation. So this will be presented and be on the consent agenda at the March board meeting.
Okay, next is our fuel bid.
Our last fuel bid was done for 2 years, and it expires on June 30th, 2019. So we will be submitting for bids for our diesel and gasoline. This will actually be an annual process in the future. Fuel prices change so dramatically that it's just something that I feel really needs to be bid out every year. And so we will be asking for approval to do what?
Doesn't that price get locked in though?
So most schools, Tim always did a fixed price rate on the fuel. Most schools do not do a fixed price rate. They do a differential. Based on our current market, I feel that would be better for us because the prices have been going down. The increases have been very slight, so I really don't want to get locked into a rate that we're set at as the prices are going down. It could go either way for us, but most school districts do choose that differential rate. And so that is what I would be putting out, is for a differential.
Don't you have a cap? I mean, like I do. The propane that I get at my house, you sign a contract and that can't go above a certain.
Typically, they don't go to that extent. Typically, they just add a differential to
What the market price is, and I'm wholesale price, that's what I was trying to think.
And our bill would be based on that every time we got the service. So it's not like they'd say, oh, well, this is going to be good for a month and the prices have gone down and we're stuck at it. It will actually be adjusted every time we order fuel. Jeff also explained some issues with getting the fuel quick enough. And so one of the things that we built into this bid was that if they have to be able to service us within 24 hours. When we need fuel, we need fuel. So, and that was a common language. I did actually review multiple RFPs for other districts, and did look at the language that they utilized, and really built this considering all of those, plus use the language that Tim has used, and I used all of those together to really create what I felt would be the best interest. So we would be asking to be able to submit, to advertise for bids the day after the board meeting. We'd have it open for a month, and then we would be opening them on April 19th.
I know it was about 8 years ago whenever we were in that $3.50, $4 range. I know that Tim at that time
That would be
went
the time
more.
when you'd want a fixed rate.
He went more towards the fixed rate.
Yes.
And the last thing, in tongue in cheek, it looks like Tim left you with several bids to do.
Well,
Whenever you said, here's another one
well,
that's
there's a
June
lot that are
30th of
just-
19. Yeah.
There's a lot
Good
that are
old
just
Tim Hawkinsmith
annually.
there left you with a bunch, Amy.
And because these are just annual bids, I'm not afraid of using a differential rate. If we got to a point where we saw that gas prices were going up and it looked like they were going to continue going up, then obviously we'd go back and go, okay, we want a fixed price.
Yeah.
But we're not in an environment that's likely right now. And so I believe that this way is the way to go, and next year we'll reevaluate and see if the market's changed. So we'll just be asking for approval for that at the board meeting.
Okay. Next, salary schedule and job description.
All right. There's a few of us.
People are coming to church.
Charlotte, if you want
It is.
to open her first one, purpose and vision.
I forget my name on top, but I'm trying to get rid of it.
It's the first link at the top of that page, where it says purpose and vision.
I can't have a link.
There's a few animations in this, which is really exciting. Yeah, I say that because it's like animation started in like 1992. They were a big deal, and then really I don't think we've used them for like 10 years since. So I'm going to just do an intro to some of the rationale behind some of the shifts that we're making. You want to set the timer for 3 minutes? Oh. So as we've continued to talk about the work in Nelson County Schools and be driven by a larger purpose, you think about the work that we've talked about with the academy, you think about the work we've talked about with workforce development tonight. Much of this is driven by this idea, this new symbol here of this, of really our students and their gifts coming to life through experiences. And that really right now is our hedgehog as we think about deep learning and how do we activate gifts of students so that as they enter the world, that they are powerful, they're confident, they're ready to rock and roll. All right, so much like Jeff Dickerson every morning. So you're going to hear us talk about this idea of a flywheel. In fact, after deep learning, there's a short book that we may dive into that is building off of Jim Collins' Good to Great, which last year we started talking about the reorganization process. We started talking a little bit about this idea of the hedgehog and where we're focusing our energy, but you can see that coming to life now. So this flywheel concept is essentially once you get something moving, it starts to self-propel. And when you think about that, building momentum has really been the work of this year. And we've been building momentum in a lot of different ways. And as we start to do this work, we're beginning to have a number of breakthroughs in this conversation, in the process. And I think as we look towards next year, you're going to begin to see, and we're already seeing in our own work, some clear results. So at the end of the day, this whole process continues energizing us as a team, energizing our community, energizing everyone to continue to grow. So in the beginning of this process, we think the main thing is really having people that are driven by a shared purpose. So last year we started this first who then what, and as you can see at the table and in the audience here, even Chip, is really people who are purpose driven, people who are driven to do great work for kids. And this book we had was a good starting point in the conversation, but really people have to be driven to bring that to life. And as we think about the work that's going on tonight, putting people first and really thinking about, okay, we have people, we have this work, what is the work that we're expecting them to do? And how does it come to life? So this is the work tonight as we think about the relationship here between the purpose of our organization and the work that goes on in thinking about job descriptions and salary schedule. In the next month, you're going to hear us talk a little bit about aligning how we continue to align our teams to the priorities. So last summer, I presented this reorganization. It had 4 columns. It looked like so. As we continue to think about the work over the course of the next year, some of those columns no longer make sense. Some of those positions no longer exist. And we've learned a lot about what it means to work together. So you'll hear more about this in April. Perfect. So you'll also hear, you can see this piece coming to life, but really the last 2 pieces here will be a discussion for tonight as well. We'll be talking about this idea of how do we work within the context of our current processes to really use technology to accelerate our use of time, space, energy, and resources. So this piece here tonight is a big part of the conversation, and this piece here will follow up our salary schedule conversation. How do we use time and resources through technology to be more of a learning organization that is growing? I think at the end of the day too, none of what we're going to be talking about tonight, none of this can come to life without people like these 3 at the table, and those in the audience, and others throughout this office who are disciplined to put in the time and energy to make things come together in March and really think, because in order to make the real changes happen, we have to start this process in December, January, February. And really, Amy, Robin, and Chase have been so involved in this process, very disciplined in their action to get us to where we can have this conversation tonight. So thank you guys for your leadership in this process. And this is the flywheel. One thing that you will hear about, the language we use, we talked about local ownership. This probably is as good of a representation of some of that shift that we're making from a centralized model of leadership and ownership that looks more like this to more of a shared local ownership model, which in the case of, let's talk about an example, maintenance, looks like currently we have 5 men working in maintenance, and they service all schools really as needed, and more in a sense, depending on the day. Where we'd be looking at more of a shared local ownership model in maintenance, and you'll see this play out in the job description structure as well as the salary structure, where we would be moving towards a model where you have really local ownership at hubs. We wouldn't necessarily have 4 hubs, we'd probably have 3, where we have hubs of people who are led by a maintenance leader working closely with a set of schools to really bring that local ownership piece to life. So my belief is this model here can work in some ways to be more short-term efficient. This model here is going to be much more meaningful in outcomes, shared learning, shared leadership. So this is really where we're moving towards and thinking about our processes and thinking about how we're giving schools what they need. And I think the same idea, you could argue, is being used with a lot of these different conversations. So that's the introduction, and you'll hear more about the other pieces of the puzzle here in the next few minutes.
All right. So we wanted to take a minute to just go back over the timeline we discussed at the last board meeting. In February, you were asked to approve the staffing policy and the tentative site-based allocations. The March board meeting, you'll be asked to approve salary schedules and job descriptions, and that will allow us to lead into April and May, where we will begin really looking at the budget and the benefits package that we offer our employees as well. So we're right on track and with what we're doing in March. Throughout our conversation over the last several months, you've heard the terms clarity and transparency over and over again, and there's no difference tonight as we talk about the salary schedule and what that looks like in.
Sure. I can't. And we can go to different ones. There's a nice picture of Amy's team.
That's not what I was going
There's
at.
lots of different, I'm not sure which part you were going. I think you were.
You had it linked for me.
Yeah, but I can't click the link on here.
Okay, there,
Regardless.
start there,
Link's right there.
One up.
Right
There we
there.
go, okay. So what I wanted to, just on the clarity and transparency, what we were really trying to do was just to create a document that is easily to read and easy to understand, both for our current employees and for our prospective employees. We did try to do something visually appealing. these are put out on the web for people who are looking at careers in education. We just really wanted to provide that clarity and transparency in what we were presenting. And so that has been our focus throughout working on these salary tables. I did want to draw your attention to a few specific things. One of the things that we addressed in this salary table is a change to the payroll dates. We're currently paid on the 15th and the 31st, or whatever the last day of the month is, and we're having a lot of balancing issues because we have salary or items that are withheld on the 31st that aren't then paid out until the following month. And so we are having a lot of issues with that. So moving those back to the 10th and the 25th doesn't hurt anybody. It's 5 days sooner, but allows us to get those items balanced prior to the end of the month. The other thing that we've really focused on this part right here is that currently our part-time employees, hourly employees, substitutes are only paid once a month still. They're paid on the 15th. So all their hours worked for the previous month, they have to wait until the following 15th. And sometimes these are our lowest paid employees. And so one of the things that we would like to change is to make sure that they get paid on the 10th and the 25th, the same as the rest of our employees. Those pay periods would be the 1st to the 15th and then the 16th to the end of the month, and paid out 10 days later. So that will take a shift in the way we process things within the payroll part, but it will be a true benefit to the employees of our district. So another, as we move forward into the schedule, and we're not going to review every page. You have time to do that when you have time to truly look at it. But one of the things we did do is try for a minimum of a 1% increase across the board. So every schedule will reflect a 1% increase. You know the certificate. So the other thing per previous discussion is we looked at increasing salaries beyond the 25 step, and we looked at the 26 to the 30 years. Now, the way I have started this conversation is by looking at what most of the increases were previously, and they were about $350. There were several large chunks at 5, 10, 15, and 20-year increments, but all the rest of them were closer to $350, which ended up being about 0.65%. And so I started with that 0.65%. There are about 60 employees that this would affect. That currently have either 25 years of experience or more. And the total cost of that would be about $60,000. I did do some calculations to provide you an idea of what it would cost if we looked at something slightly different. A 1.3% increase across the board for anybody who is 25 years or more would be approximately $125,000, and a 1.7%, which if you look at our certified schedule is the average increase overall, if you don't look at the large jumps, would cost approximately $160,000.
So is this just salary?
This is salary and benefits.
That's salary and benefits?
Yes.
So I think too, we recognize that we want to reciprocate everyone in our district, and that there's an opportunity we know to honor that the retirement system really demands at least 27 years. But many of our teachers do work, some of our teachers do work beyond that, and some of our staff members classified especially work beyond 27. So with that said, we also recognize that at the end of the day, we'd love to pay everyone more. This is really we want to give you the information so that you understand the additional cost, and it gives you time to evaluate what those additional costs would be. So you're either looking at 160, 125, or 60, or none if we stay in the current model. But that's not listed up there as an option, but that's, as you know, that's an option as well. And then really the top piece there is a 1% increase for all employees is $250,000. Which has been a relatively steady cost for our district for the last few years, anytime there is any increase. So all these are additional financial costs that you would need to be aware of in the current model.
So with that, and I'll just say regardless of whether it's for years 25 through 30 step increases, whether it's 0, 0.65, 1 whatever, is it 250 for 1% across the board? Is that with it being set at a 0 increase?
For the above 25.
For the above 25. So if we went with the .65, 1.3, 1.7, some variation, the 250 would then slide up proportionally because of sliding up the 25 through 30?
No, it would be 250 plus that,
Yes.
because it's
Okay.
already going to be
Okay.
250,000, and
Gotcha.
then it's going to be an
Okay.
additional amount for those groups.
I got
Nothing changes, it's 250,000. You add,
I'm with you now.
one of those three options is 250 plus whatever.
Well, if nothing changes,
What's,
150,000.
Yes.
yeah.
Just because of step increases that are going to happen
Yes,
no
it
matter
is.
what.
Yes, and those actually typically are more, but we also end up having retirees and newly experienced teachers coming in, which ends up balancing out part of that
Yeah.
cost.
Okay, I'm gonna say this now and get it off my chest before we go further. I look for the state, and I've said this to Wes, it's nothing I haven't said to him. You gotta think about, we have to think about, if a student walks past on that graduation day with a 2-year diploma, they go to school, they can get possibly out by 21. And if the state changes the years and the date when you can retire, we're gonna have more people that's gonna work 25 to 30 years. And that's just the way it's gonna be. So we need to think about that. And teachers deserve it. You all know that's the way I feel. I gave you all some salary schedules before. We have not, in my view, we have not paid enough attention to our teachers. And they are the backbone of what we're trying to do here.
I
will
could
say-
not agree more, so let me put this
Thank
out
you.
there. And that is, I think that as a district that is innovative and on the edge, that we look at new and exciting ways to perhaps incentivize our top teachers.
Yes.
So,
I don't know if we can do that, I don't know if we're allowed to do that, but I just know we need to take care of our teachers. If we want to keep what we've got.
Oh, I don't think we need to, no.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean.
So I think at the end of the day, we all recognize that our teachers are the backbone of the work.
Yes.
Along with our bus drivers, our cafeteria leaders, and our
Absolutely.
custodians.
All of us, all of us.
And
All
that
right.
this does address every position across the district. With that said, let's be clear, this model we're working on right here, 25 to 30, is honoring the next 10 years. I hear what you're saying, but I don't think we're planning this out 30 years necessarily. I think this is a conversation that we're saying we want to honor the experiences of those within our current organization, because to say that an 18-year-old is going to graduate, it's going to be 2052 by the time this would impact them. And
Still going to.
So let me ask one more question then. On the option 1, 2, and 3, that is just being applied, some variation being applied toward certified schedule?
No, it addresses both certified and classified
Okay.
employees.
Okay.
So every salary schedule will go up to 30 years because we need to provide some consistency.
Okay.
It's about 60, which is about 30 certified and 30 classified.
so this would immediately impact 60 people.
Yeah, okay.
And the same percentage was used across the board, and if you select a different percentage, then
But it would
I would apply it across
impact,
the
every
board.
year would impact an additional 10, 15 people. So it really is just a way of saying we honor your service to our students and to the Dawson County Schools, in the sense that it is honoring time. So,
So this is truly a decision that you guys are going to have to discuss and make, and then I will adjust the salary tables accordingly before the board meeting.
yeah.
And just so I'm clear, this is solely based on years of service.
That's correct.
Solely based on years of service. So currently, the only models that really exist are based on years of service. All right. Anything else, Amy?
I think that's the,
yeah, I think when we, both Robin and myself get done, I think there is some time to
Mhm.
gather your all's kind of next steps for us and thinking through what happens between now and March the 19th for us to be able to continue that conversation at the bottom moving forward. Because we know that we have to give our principals, our teachers, our classified staff, and our prospective employees a lot of clarity because we're about to start the hiring season, so to speak. But there'll be some time here at the end for us to get your all's feedback and thoughts on that.
I wish we could get more.
What do other districts do? I mean, is this kind of what
I
the
looked
state
at,
average
I looked at
is?
quite a few. There are some districts that stop at 20 years. There are
No,
some
I'm not
that-
worried about the years. I'm talking about
Yeah.
the percent, the 1%.
So one of the things that Nelson County School District does that not every other school does is it gives an annual increase. A lot of most school districts do not because policy actually states that the increases will be 0 to 4 and 5 to 9 or actually lists it out in statute. It doesn't
So-
say that obviously we can give more, but that's the minimum and that's what the schedules for most
Well,
districts do. So
the-
they're larger increases because they're not as often.
I think more specific, the question is about what across the board salary increases, like the 1% versus no or 2%, which I think that's all over the board. I mean, there was a few years back where the state legislature
Mandated.
partially fundated something they mandated. 1% one year and the next year 2% because it was during election years, so they wanted to make sure to do something good.
There's also been a lot of years where, because of the funding, how tight funding was in
It's been a
most school
zero.
districts,
I mean, yeah, we
do
do.
anything.
We
Yeah.
can't, you can't pay what you don't have, period. It's not like we can get a visa and put this on there.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work that way.
At one time, so a lot of the salary schedule conversations I know we've had here locally in years past have ended up centering around trying to be competitive with
Right.
both other employers within this county, Bardstown City Schools, as well as other employers surrounding us, whether it was Bullitt, Washington, whatever. And so I know in past years, there's been a lot of comparisons to what did like a 0 years of experience salary, with just a bachelor's look like to several other surrounding employers. What did it look like at 5 years or 10 years or with a rank 2 or, a rank 1? At one time, in Bardstown, and this is one thing we've got to be careful about, Bardstown City Schools has always been higher up out of the 173 school districts, higher up on the list of average salary. At one time, we were in, I think, the top 20, and we did start to slide back around 08 or 09, like a lot of districts probably did, because as Amy was just saying, we couldn't give any raises because of the recession. And of course, Jefferson, you'll never compete with a Jefferson, because, but also there are other benefits to a Nelson versus a Jefferson. So, whenever we look at a 1%, across the board, or 2%, or whatever, or 0, whatever it might be, it's trying to make sure, I think, that we're keeping somewhat competitive to keep our best educators from saying, well, I could drive another 15 minutes and make $10,000 more. Why would I not want to do that? That the whole concept of caring about our staff, making sure that.
Well, right, because they're not,
Sure.
And I think the things that we've done here, I mean, look around the people sitting at this table that are the paid people to be here.
Sure.
That's why people want to work here. That's where.
That's the value add
Right,
piece, the
this is the value add.
intangible. Yeah.
I think that to answer part of that, out of the 173 school districts, they're all kind of unique, so you take like Nelson County, one of the things that's very unique about here is just the geographic area where our buses go, and all that kind of comes from a general fund, and probably all 173 have a different tax rate, they've got different costs and expenditures, so it's really unique in what they do. But just because I'm a school nerd and I look at things like this a lot, I'd say generally when schools give raises, it's either nothing, 1% or 2%, generally.
So we are then meeting the expectation of our most valuable resource besides students, and that is our staff, our teachers, our certified. I guess I'm a little bit floored that 1% meets the expectation. So is this going to meet the expectation of, is this what people think they're supposed to get?
So I don't know, maybe Dan, you can speak to this. I'm not sure what the history is in Nelson County of 1%, no raises, when the last time it was.
So the last time there were actual raises were across the board, percent rate if I remember right, was the mandate at 1% and 2%. We did 1 year, and it was Mr. Rapier who recommended it, and it was kind of a little bit of an outside the box. It was a one-time stipend, because the thing we got to keep in mind, if there's a 1% increase, and I'm not talking against any increase, but if there's a 1% increase, that's not just this year, but that's next year.
Right.
Plus, there's the step added to that, which is about a 1.7 times 250, so you figure that in there as well. So this year it's 250, next year it's 250 plus. Everybody's gone up a little bit. Nikki had recommended one time that it was a one-time lump sum, and it happened at Christmas time. Because that way it's what could be afforded, and it was a non-recurring cost. But historically, around the state, and we got to keep in mind, it's not good or bad, it's kind of the way it is. Public sector versus private sector, and I've been in both of them. Private sector, there were years where I could negotiate a 7, 8, 9%, bump. In public sector like this, though, typically it is, especially in school districts, it is a 0, 1, or 2, as what Chase was just saying. And it's not that it's expected, it's that is typically what happens if there is a across-the-board raise. Okay?
And as you can see, it's $250,000 per 1%. So if the board requested that we go up an additional percentage, it would be an additional $250,000.
And about, I'm sorry, one more thing. So, and like about the expected, I think, sorry, let me throw that in. The expected piece, we got to keep in mind that the steps are the expected piece.
Okay,
That's one way to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the way K-12 educational system, and even I would say at the college level, which I've never been at as far as teaching, there is that annual step. It's the years of service. It is, you continue, you meet expectations, the step is there, and that's the expectation. We like to also think that there's an expectation that as budgets are good, as economy is good, that there's also that across-the-board raise. It's just over the past decade, things have been in such a flux because of the housing recession and everything that dominoed after it, that the norms of, for many years, every year there being a 1% across the board on top of the step, disappearing.
I want to ask, before we proceed, how much is the increase between year 25 and 30?
It would be 0.65 per year.
No, give me a cost, at the most, like $3,500 between year 25 and 30.
At the 0.65, it was only about $1,500 from 25 to 30.
But keep in mind, didn't you just say, though, that the average, kind of the typical increase from year to year was
Yeah,
$360 something?
It was $350. I took
Yeah.
that and I just created a percentage out of it.
Which
I mean,
which
it's simple, but
350
that's
times 5
exactly what I
is about
did.
15, yeah.
So right here, it's, I think it's listed there.
I need the schedule that was pulled up
I think
there.
it's right there.
Because I made the comment also that I thought they deserved more than $400 a year, because I would hate to go to Kroger's and have to buy $400 worth of food, and you
Yeah.
can stick it in a basket, bring it home.
Yeah, so you can see from year to year, it was about that amount before I used the number that was already existing in the salary schedule.
So then you can see there, that this is the 0.65%, right?
Yes.
So at year 25 on the first,
Yes, that's what I'm looking at,
So-
is 25 to 30.
on the year 25, on the last column is 67, it would be 69.6 there, so it would be 2,000.
$2,500. So you're looking at either 2,500,
Actually,
5,000,
Okay.
or
Yeah, there you
7,500, somewhere close to that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, we all agree, we can all use the rhetoric of, because we believe it, that our teachers they're valuable, but we've got to remember, if we don't like the 350, the 365, or whatever the average is, multiply that times 370 people and do that every year, and what does that then end up becoming as far as an increased budget that has to be put in place? I'm not saying we can't do something, I'm just saying we've also got to be very careful, because the 1% is $250,000. That's $250,000 that is not part of the current no tax rate increase, no tax revenue increase thinking. So if we think 2%, if we're thinking 4%, if we wanted it to be $2,500 per year between 25 and 26, and 26 and 27, we're getting into the dollar range that we don't have the ability to do.
Well, we can't generate
Yeah,
that
no.
money.
And also, yeah, I mean, we just can't do it. So what we do, we need to have consistency. We need to have equity. And what I'm hearing that you've done, Ms. Owens, is you've looked at across 1 through 25, 0 through 25, and you've kind of tried to find what the sweet spot is so that that equity continues on in those last 5 years.
I did, and I didn't look at the large jumps because I felt like it was going to be cost prohibitive. Those large jumps were $2,500 to $4,000 for 1 year. And for 60 people, I just didn't see how we could commit to that. That is your choice, of course, and if you choose to do that, then I'll go back to it. But I felt that it might be too cost prohibitive.
Well, I'm thinking about the money too that we have saved by doing away with certain things.
We, during our discussion last month, though, we had already reallocated that to
That's what
other
I'm saying,
positions.
but I'm thinking about the worth.
I think our next conversation that we're having, we'll be talking about some opportunities for optimizing resources. With staffing allocation, we essentially reallocated staffing towards priorities. Here's an overview of Ray's history in Nelson County Schools. You can see in 1992, the 6.25% raise. How that happened, I don't know. And you can see also there was state mandated raises that forced a lot of these through in some cases. But then you can look at right here in 2008.
1992 happened because of the Education Reform Act. That was FARA.
So right here is the shift. So we went through, everything changed in 2008.
Okay.
So I shared this with you too through the drive.
Yeah, and you can see there the part that is highlighted, you start to see it disappear, and that's with the recession hit. And that kind of explains why the expectation started to be reset during those years to 0%, above and beyond STEP. A lot of times we forget that STEP happens every year. Other than what has occurred in the past, the 25 through 30, which we're trying to rectify. But STEP happens every year. And that is consistent across any public sector employee, whether we're talking about certified teachers, classified employees, a Kentucky Department of Transportation worker, a social worker that works for CHFS, if I'm saying the right acronym. Those steps happen consistently in public sector. The difference being here is that we've got to remember that's the expectation. What can we add on to the expectation?
So,
I think really the goal is that over the next 2 weeks that we gain consensus on where you guys stand, and we can make sure that we list that out for the board meeting, and we'll have further discussion at that time if needed.
Okay, just one more question, just so Ms. Owens, you gave 3 options. Is it roughly every 1/10%, about $10,000? Is that what it boiled down to? Because I noticed 6.5 was 60,000. So if we wanted in our heads to start thinking, well, instead of the 3 options, what if we hit somewhere in between? We can just use 10,000 per 10th.
Yes, that would be close.
Gives us a ballpark.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, is it me? Yep. All right. So we began revising our job descriptions, and when we began this process, we really wanted to take our job descriptions and provide the clarity and transparency for prospective candidates that want to work in Nelson County, some attachment to our purpose and our values, and we wanted to make these job descriptions value-driven and the expectations very clear. The second part of this is that we want to also make the expectations that are in the job description the same expectations that will be in the evaluation. So we're looking at really kind of a 3-way alignment where we're aligning to our values and then we're aligning to the evaluation.
No, I'm saying, tell him. He was like covering
Watching your
like he didn't
hand.
know. I was trying to give like Carla the sign over here. Like,
We need to get
Like-
the little yellow
Third
flashlight
base, you were looking like you need to pull your ear.
You know, links are great, except when you're presenting and you need to press them, and all you have is this, you know.
So we have about 95 job descriptions that we are in the midst of revising right now. And we have accomplished 43 of those. So we have got roughly half. We look to have the rest of those accomplished by Wednesday next week so that you guys can look through and peruse as many or all of them if you want to. You'll see that in the list there are some of them that are highlighted in blue, and those are the new positions that you approved last month. Reallocated positions. So we are just working our way through this right now, and the biggest part of this has been really making all the job descriptions have similar language with each other, all 95 of them. And we're not quite, you'll see when you start looking through some of them that we're still wordsmithing on those to make sure that they are consistent among all 95, and also that they're aligned to our priorities and our values. And then the next step, as I said already, is that we want our evaluation structure and our evaluation plan to align to what people, we want to tell people what we expect of them, and then we want to evaluate them on those expectations that we told them from the past.
Which is why you will see there that in May is when you guys will look at our evaluation plan and procedures and approve that process. Then hopefully you'll see very clear alignment between what you're going to approve on job descriptions in March and expectations for what that looks like in May.
In that schedule, we also tried to group by department rather than having the 16 lines of grades and then saying, hey, these positions are paid off this grade. And so as you look through, and we've grouped the job descriptions the exact same way, so you might see a facility services one that would, the salaries along that line are specific to that position, and then the job descriptions are grouped together in that as well if you go. So something similar to this, that really provides some clarity and consistency, so that it's not confusing for people. They don't have to sit there and go, well, where am I going to be? This is facility services. Those are the positions for facility services. And if you look at the job descriptions, all the facility service job descriptions are available there as well.
Yeah. And then this, the last part is really about teacher and student leadership. So
Let's just stop there.
Which one would not? Just
The only difference we have is you guys get a little more excited in your picture.
Yeah.
We don't want the picture. The whole department voted against it.
So one of the things that was part of this was ensuring that we had leadership stipends for teachers at all school levels. So in the past, you all had approved, I believe, department head type stipends for the high school. So we wanted to provide some it's really more teacher leadership, because it looks a little bit different in each school, what teacher leadership encompasses. I think, speaking to your point, thinking about our teacher leaders and some of the innovative work that they do, and giving schools some flexibility to be able to really empower them to do more great work, either as a PLC leader, house caretaker, lots of different things that teacher leadership might look like. So that was one of the things. Then we also, when we looked at student leadership stipends, we wanted to create some parity with some other schools. So we looked at 5th Region
Just to give some context, 2011 when the school split, all of the stipends were essentially revised at that time. Because you went from having one coach to 2 coaches. And since then, and I think that was just really done with the intent that we were being prudent and not fully understanding the cost of 2 high schools. Since then, we've learned more about the cost, have stabilized, and have a better awareness. We also, I think, have a sense of how we want to continue to value these various roles.
And we know that the student leadership works much the same way that you all talked about with any position. Like you need to make sure that you pay people, you need to look at the areas around you and make sure that you're comparable if you want to recruit great people to do that. We know student leadership is a priority for us. We want every kid to have a student leadership experience. So we have to make sure that the stipends that we provide to do those experiences are part of that. So if you'll click that link right there. So in the teacher leadership, you will see where schools have different allotments. So high schools, if this is approved, high schools would have 10,000, and then the middle K-8s and elementaries would have 5. Part of that's the size, part of that's also because of some of the intricacies involved with high school life, and by its very nature, it's much
That's a
less.
decrease from 15,000.
Yes. Overall, it is an increase of $25,000. So we've been spending $30,000 on teacher leadership solely at the 2 high schools. This would be $55,000 towards teacher leadership amongst all 9 schools. So it's an overall increase of 25.
Key idea, though, is flexibility, as we want to think about teacher leadership broadening. Site-based councils can match this in $500 increments if they so choose. So that's something that is going to be, I think, an important part of the conversation.
So what you'll see there is pay bands, which basically says that those pay bands mean that a school might choose to allocate a $500 stipend, a $1,000 stipend, $1,500 stipend, depending on the way the principal and the site-based council kind of sees fit. So, a school might allocate 10 $500 stipends, it might allocate $5,000 stipends, they might do a combination of different things. They might also take their site-based council funds, Section 6 money, and add some additional money to that as well if they so chose, the site-based council did. And those are conversations we're going to have this month and next month with principals, so that in May, when you all approve a tentative budget, you'll also be able to see if the school council is really thinking about adding some money to teacher leadership, what that might look like.
I can tell you what I am going to ask on that is why the K through 8 doesn't get 10.
Just smaller.
They have, so,
Fewer students.
Okay, then why is it not figured per head? If the reason is it's smaller, then why is it not per head?
Like the per ADA,
Right.
average daily attendance.
It's needs, honestly, we just look at the needs of the school, we know the schools. That's really it, honestly.
Because the kids can't play on the same team. If there's K through 8, there's
Whoa,
something.
whoa, wait, this is just
what
for, so this is teacher leadership when it comes to.
This isn't
like-
coaches and stuff?
No. So this is like, teacher leadership is, if you think about it, it's like somebody that might lead like a department
So the
or.
house families in Boston.
Yes. They might
Oh,
be a family.
okay.
That's what that means.
All right.
So
I was like,
So
that
in the
makes
past,
sense.
they never received anything. So in the past, there was nothing received.
So this is new money.
$25,000 towards teacher leadership.
Not new.
It is.
Reality.
No,
It is if you do
it's
different
reality.
ways about it, but it's really,
Like, we're reallocating money towards student and teacher leadership. This is an example of that, but it'll be new to the school. They've never received.
That's what I meant. Yes, yeah.
And if you go back to the model where I had the local ownership model.
Yes,
This
okay.
is where that looks like in the school. We have house leaders at OKH, and we have PLC leaders at OKH that are getting essentially not paid. And then you walk 200 yards down the road, we have $15,000,
Okay.
right?
Fair
So,
enough. That makes
Not
sense
level
now.
playing
Okay.
field almost, yeah.
well, we also,
but I think you can't.
If we value it, we pay it all the same.
this also goes back to, I think,
Greater needs in
so
some
part of it-
places than you do in others.
Yeah, so part of this is at the high school level, there are intricacies involved in that conversation, which is why the high school's been more. Even from the standpoint of, you think about student leadership and the sheer number of teams, coaches, those sort of things, that's why it looks a little bit different. That's why they're staffed a little bit different, so on and so forth. So this is really for teachers to demonstrate leadership within the building, and that could look like a department leader, a grade level leader, a house leader if they are a family leader at Boston, whatever that structure may be, for those people to have some type of compensation for the leadership role that they're taking on in the building.
we're likely going to be working in the summer.
Which-
working after school, later hours.
Absolutely goes to my point of what I was making before. Pay the people who do more.
Yeah.
Fair.
We also see at the bottom, each school will also have $2,000 towards technology leadership. That could be through STLP work that a school wants to do. That could be through some student technology, or school technology coordination. We've kind of been all over the place a little bit with that, so that just basically says every school will have $2,000 towards student technology.
So it could be that a school ends up saying, and I'll do each end of the spectrum, the school that says there's a person that's going to kind of lead that, be that STLP coach, I'll use that phrase, but they say, no, I don't want the stipend. We're going to use that full 2,000 to go towards the work that our kids are doing here. And the needs of that?
No, this
Okay.
will be for stipends for
Okay.
individuals to do that work.
So then maybe an example would be, in one school, that person says they're going to do it all for a $2,000 stipend.
Yes.
This other school, it may be that there's 4 people that do it for $500 each.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and then in student leadership, and I will let you all look through the list, but really a couple I want to point out is we pretty much elevated every coach in our district that is participating as part of student leadership in salary. And then we did that, and if you look at, we exit out of the present mode. Something that you all can take a look at is I have linked 5th region comparisons there. So you can go in and the schools that submitted it, not all schools were required to, you can see some comparisons of where we were, where the 5th region schools were, and then where this salary lists us to be. And you can see the differences of what that looks like at that link right there.
You want to just open it?
Yes,
You can.
please.
Well, it's not a taste.
So you can see the schools at the top. And let me also preface it with this. This is self-reported data, okay? So if you actually go to the second sheet right there, at the bottom, that says new salary comparison. It's a little bit bigger. So you can see column B, or column A is the position. Column B is where we have been. Column C is the 5th region average. And column D was the difference. And then in column G is what we are proposing to raise that to, okay? So really what that means across the board is, and we did this as well, there's some intricacies, like we thought that the marching band at the high schools was comparable to a major coach of a head sport, because they're doing a lot of work in the summer. It goes multiple seasons. It goes football season, basketball season. It's a long season. So you'll see some of that as well. You'll also see that a couple of these that are unique, where there's a significant difference. Baseball, softball, they've got significant field needs. If you're a baseball, softball coach, I was a baseball coach, every day you're doing field work, where a volleyball coach isn't doing work in the gym, right? So that's some of the reasons for that work. But you can see across the board. I'll also say too that 5th region average to some degree is unique, and the reason those are in blue is because that doesn't include extended days. Some school districts like to include, like, they may pay a football coach a $5,000 stipend, but they give them 20 extended days on top of their salary. So that is a little bit of the uniqueness when it comes to, especially your major sports, basketball, football. That's a
Maybe
difference.
the schools would give extended days to assistant coaches in
Yeah.
basketball and football.
Do we?
No.
So what I hear out of this is we're trying to do some, go ahead.
I think to answer your question, because you're probably wondering why, part of that is because.
Oh, no, I get why we would.
Okay.
Oh, no, I get why we would.
Okay.
Well,
it's also an issue of a lot of our assistant coaches are not certified employees.
Right.
So adding days to them,
Right.
it's like what daily rate do you pay them, because they're not, yeah.
So we're trying to have some, I'm going to use the term very loosely, some parity with other 5th region.
Yeah.
That's what I hear here. But more importantly, my question would be, are we making sure that internally, for instance, and I heard you talk about band directors, marching band directors, are we also trying to make sure that we have parity between head softball, head baseball, head football?
So Title IX requirements really require us to match up salaries of similar sports, which means that we couldn't pay the head baseball coach $5,000 and the head softball coach $2,000.
Yeah.
Because that's all reported through Title IX requirements. But the other things that I would like to point your attention to, one is part of the role of the student leadership coordinators that you all approved on allocations last month is going to be to take an even closer look at opportunities across our school district where we need to allocate resources and funds to making sure that kids have opportunities for student leadership. That's going to be part of their work next year, and really taking a critical look at that, whether it's at the elementary level, middle, high, K-8, whatever it might be. The other component is we did go ahead and add a couple. So you'll see esports is listed there. Esports is at both high schools. It is an opportunity for kids to engage in a KHSAA sanctioned sport. There is a KHSAA bylaws, restrictions, regs, all that stuff that follows it. And it's an opportunity for a lot of our kids to participate in a form of student leadership that may not have otherwise participated in a form of student leadership.
Thomas Nelson went 2-0 last weekend.
It'll be the fastest growing sport.
Yeah, there's big scholarship money in this, and we're just finished year 0 in the state, and Bull County High School is the state championship in that one. So we gave them a run for their money.
Okay, yeah, you'll also see here, another thing that we added to is Caitlin Mason at Nelson County High School started a unified basketball program. I think you all we talked about that a couple months ago, I believe. So unified is really an opportunity for us, another group of our students that would not maybe traditionally participate in a sport, KHSAA. It's also KHSAA sanctioned to have an opportunity to do that as well.
At the two high schools, one thing and it's finally started to click in my head that I'm starting to hear both you say here, I've heard Superintendent Bradley bring it up, is that traditional athletic director role, while some of those same duties will happen, that person at each of our high school that's going to be looking for those opportunities to expand student leadership opportunities, the second word twice there, it's taking that traditional AD role and taking it to the next level.
Yes.
And it is not just about finding opportunities for our students in athletics, but opportunities for our students across the entire spectrum.
Yep.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep, absolutely. So my last comments I'll say is that this scale really looks at, it does give incremental from 0 to 5, and then at those gap years, we thought that getting coaches in our system and keeping them around longer than a year or 2 years, that is a shift. Also, just to let you know, total cost, that new salary schedule basically means about an increase of $25,000 per high school, which is about $50,000 total. And then there's additional $10,000 between elementary schools and middle schools and K-8 schools in their salaries as well. So that's a total of about $60,000 to $65,000 that was reallocated. It's been reallocated funds towards student leadership, and then $25,000 that was reallocated for teacher leadership into some different things.
So whenever you're talking about the reallocation, because I think that's an important thing for us to remember, and also I know for Mr. Brooks and for anybody that might be looking back at this, we've heard a lot of numbers thrown out here, 50,000, 60,000 or so. We heard the 100,000 or the 250,000, the 65,000. A lot of this that I'm hearing you say is not new monies, but it's reallocating money.
So yeah, I want to make sure everybody's clear with that. So yes, you're exactly right. This is additional cost. 1% step increases what we choose to do with 25 to 30. Everything else, the teacher leadership, the student leadership, that was part of that reallocation process that we talked about last month, and what that looked like. So
we're giving more opportunities for those leadership examples. It's the changes in the roles and responsibilities at our two high schools from an traditional athletic director view. It's those $10,000 and $5,000 pockets of funds at our high schools and our lower grade schools. All of those are just, we're moving money to put it out more towards resources at the school building versus that one slide deck which we have to chew on, think through do we do it across the board salary schedule upgrade? Do we do the 25 through 30 year upgrades? Well, those are potentially new money.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's $0 it's costing us.
Well, we reallocated.
Reallocated
approximately
funds.
Yeah, just where-
$600,000.
That's the point.
And-
Yes.
Yeah, so I think too, I think one of the biggest things, once again, is that these student leadership coordinators, they will have a we challenge our principals to be in classrooms every week, and they need to be coaching teachers on a cycle. The same thing will exist with student leadership coordinators and the leaders in those organizations, not just athletically, but whatever those organizations might be. That's part of the expectation of those positions as well. So really, for March 19th, it's ensuring that you all have a chance by next Wednesday, all 95 job descriptions. We've highlighted the new ones for you, but you have a chance to look at those. Any feedback that you might offer, we would welcome. And then what you just said, the decision on the 25 to 30, what that conversation is.
So, only one more question, and I'm gonna throw, this one goes back to the beginning about the payroll dates. And I only bring this one up because whenever we switched from one schedule to another schedule a few years ago, there was a lot of discussion at that time about, well, now, wait a minute, a lot of folks have auto debits that occur. And
This
they-
won't affect those at all because it's 5 days earlier and still 2 days.
Okay. I couldn't remember what the shift was we did then, but there was concern because people were going, well, wait a minute, then that means that I'm going to have to refinance my
So
house
what
to get the date on a
happened-
different date?
Yeah, so what happened back then is instead of being paid once per month, they did it twice per month,
Okay.
and that first check, they only got half a
That's right.
check. So if
That's
they had
right.
been used to getting a full check, all of a sudden,
Making it
this month I
last a
got
full
half
month.
of it.
Yeah.
But I'm
Okay.
used to paying all my bills when I get this one check, and now I can only pay half of them.
That
This one will
that was a
not.
much bigger change. I remember
Yeah.
that now. Okay.
Yep. This one will not affect them, other than giving them their check 5 days earlier.
So you can go to that document, right click, is there comments, we get meeting notifications, you can send emails, we can talk, do those things that come up over the next few weeks. And if there's a job description that we're not ready to move on, we need to make revisions, we can make revisions.
All right. We good?
I didn't
Thank
tell
you.
you to
I
leave,
just want to
Chase.
applaud this team for the work that's
Back
gone
down
into
there,
this.
Chase. Now, you're finished, Chase.
Vice Chair, right? Vice Chair, you're gonna have to.
I'm
you're gonna
not.
have to- Vice Chair? I think you are.
Oh, my bad.
You're gonna have to.
I'll talk to her later.
Yeah.
Please take, I'm done. Take the candy, please.
Okay. Resource, okay, we've got resource optimization and counseling services.
So you saw a little bit about the flywheel earlier, and as we start talking more about reallocating funds and how we can find resources to focus on our priorities and to put back into local ownership options, we wanted to look at some consulting opportunities that have presented themselves. Consulting is an opportunity for us to start looking at ways to, they provide an expertise, a subject matter expertise that sometimes we don't always have readily available to us, or that it will take us a whole lot longer to achieve what they can achieve by devices that they already have available. Not only that, but it provides an objective assessment. They come in as a third party to really evaluate what we do, look at our operations, look at our processes, and truly try to find ways to guide us into ways that we can be more efficient. And every time we gain a more efficient process, those are funds that we can then put back into our district vision, our district goals, and that is what we wanted to look at.
So we have a really good opportunity with nutrition services, and what kind of led to that was we want to reimagine how nutrition services are offered to the district community. So this opportunity will allow the consulting firm to observe our current practices. And 4 of our schools will have 1 at each grade level. And the purpose is to just improve the practices to work more efficient and reduce operational costs. The potential savings from these reduced operational costs will allow us to better allocate funds to contribute to the overall vision of the Nutrition Services Department.
So, Sue, I think I talked to some of you about the cost. I may have underestimated the cost. You can talk a little bit about the cost and where that cost will come from of this consulting services, because one of them is essentially no upfront cost, but the nutrition services is a cost.
Yes, the nutrition services is a cost. It
If you
would come
can-
from the,
Can you click
How
on
much?
that?
from Area 51.
And I think if you go a couple pages down, it actually has what it would break down to.
Yeah. So they broke it down as how
So-
many schools they would come and visit. So we were looking at that 1 to 5.
So I was off.
So just under
So 10 grand.
Just over 9.
All paid out of food service funds, just so you know.
So talk a little bit more about the types of learning that you see coming from this.
I think this, again, would just give us a fresh approach to ways that we can work more efficient, how we can save more money, and make our nutrition service department.
They come in with an expertise because they've worked with, they have years and years of experience in school food service. So they'd be bringing into that and looking.
And the person that I've actually talked with, she has 24 years of school food service experience. She has went into different districts and really worked the financial aspect of it, and just kind of reimagining ways that you can have some potential
So
savings.
when she was giving her presentation to you, so did she, tell you, this is what, the state of this union was at the school district that I was working in, and this is what the finished product was, and the potential, and the savings that they did? I mean, did they give examples of that? Like, what was the average?
I can't give you really an average.
We reached out to them because we realized that in our food service operations that last year we lost money. And therefore, we're looking at at it more closely along, we are not being as efficient as we can be with these resources. And so we started looking at options and found a company that we work with on other aspects that could truly provide a service and come in and look at what we're doing and go, okay, this is great, you're doing a great job here, this is something that you could do to be more. Exactly.
Process improvement is what they're going to probably put you on a plan.
Yes.
And they
So
help you.
They do. They come up with ways that we can work more efficient. And this is actually the same company that,
But obviously, they've got experience in other school districts, so I'd like to kind of hear
what the
kind of
actual
work they've done in other districts. Yeah, exactly.
Do they-
Yeah, because, I mean, we're going to spend, almost $15,000, to do this. I would like to see, the return on the investment.
Do they have a service level agreement? I have no problem spending $10,000 if they tell me that we're guaranteed that we'll save at least 5, that if last year we lost 10 grand, they're saying you pay us 10, but we can give you a service level agreement that won't lose more than 5 this year. I mean, is there any type of, or is it that we're just gonna roll the dice and say, okay, we hope you find something here that we haven't found ourselves, or?
I mean, are they gonna?
This particular
I'm
company is
looking
looking
at
at a different level of, it's not just about savings and nutrition services. It's also looking at USDA compliance and things like that we're audited on regularly. And so this particular one, the other consulting firm that we'll look at is different, but this one looks at, it's efficiency and it's also financial practices as well.
So this is almost like an audit, the financial audit, except they're not trying to make sure we're compliant only. They're looking to see, one, is there some compliance? Is there things we can get better at? They may make recommendations. They may say, you really need to do these. Here's some things you could do. Is that kind of what?
It's not just, it's financial and operational,
Yeah.
yes.
So a question here, I heard 1 to 5 schools. What's the center column label?
number of
How many
consecutive
days?
days on site.
Okay, and then the next one is that additional cost, and I assume the far right column is just
that
the total across.
That's correct.
Okay. So
And that's not per school, that's all together.
yes, so it would be between 1 and 5 schools would be 11,035.
How much money are we spending in food services annually right now?
$2.5 million.
Right, $2.5 million. So what they do is allow us to evaluate how we're spending that money. How many employees do we have in food services?
About 65.
Well, I mean, you as the new director, have you not taken a look at it and said, hey, this is what I think that, we can do to improve and let's give it a shot? I mean, I don't know, I'm just sitting here thinking that, you do great work.
Mhm.
And so, why not give yourself the opportunity to do this and evaluate and look at before you bring somebody else in? I mean,
I think what we can do is we can step back and we can talk to other districts, see what value they gained or didn't gain. I think the reality is Jessica's doing a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
But this other, when we think about consulting services, they give us a 20-year lens, and they also give us the diversity of working with other districts. And there's a intentional focus in the process that allows us to explore this much more intentionally and deeply. And we're talking about a significant amount of costs we're incurring annually and a lot of meals we're serving. So I think all in all, we just need to get more, need to get more data for you guys.
What do you think? I mean, we're talking about $2 million. If you think that they can make a 5% difference, then we should be all over this. Do you have any sense of you think this will be a grand success if they do a 5%, or is it a 0.5%? What do we hope to gain from this?
I believe you would be closer to looking at a 5%.
Which is
That's where I was trying to get to.
Which is
Exactly.
$125,000.
So
yeah.
why wouldn't we want to
Which
spend?
would be, just in hindsight, a lot
Right.
of great equipment that is gonna make our labor more
Exactly.
efficient.
Which is going to then.
I'm not able to do that because we were at a loss last year.
Well, and it's not to say low-hanging fruit is easy fruit. Sometimes it can be very hard to get it. But one thing you've done is you've been able to grab some of that low-hanging fruit already that you found and discovered in this first year. Now we need someone to pick some of the fruit from the inside of the tree and higher up on the tree.
Let's be honest, 1% savings
Yeah.
would pay for this in 1 year. 1% would.
So the question would be, why are we just doing 1 to 5 instead of doing all the school buildings?
I feel like we could get just as much value out of doing 4 as doing all of them and save $5,000.
Because then you can go to all the schools and say, this is what.
So then we replicate what we got
Yep.
at. Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, you're being absolutely great consumers
Yeah.
of the money, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that, absolutely. That's what I was trying to get to of overall what we were looking at, because it looks like, okay, we're spending a lot of money, but in reality, they don't, and they're experts
Yes.
in this, what they're doing.
And this truly is coming out of food service funds. This is not the tax dollars. This is out of food service funds.
There's two issues, there's two primary issues with this though. One, I told them it was gonna cost less, so that's my fault.
You told me it was $3,000.
Yeah, which is.
Yeah.
maybe-
So I think that
that's what
was
I
the other.
That was the other one.
Is that the online
So that was
application?
the
That's the
other-
online application.
That's the other-
That's the online
That's
application.
my fault, that's my fault. The other piece is we don't have enough data for you guys to make a good decision. So we have to get more data, and we also have to talk to the districts. So the combination of those two things, we're not ready to make a decision.
I mean, we don't want to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, no, but we need something here other than, who did they go to? I mean, give us a school or give us some references that we can say.
And they're actually all across the country, so this is going to be.
So maybe between now and the 19th or whatever our date is, maybe if we kind of heard what some of the typicals are, I mean, I was just doing quick
Yes.
math. 0.5% pays for it.
0.5%.
0.5% of cost efficiency pays for it, and it's a break even. I'm hearing 1, 2, 3 could easily do it, and then you're saying it's probably going to be closer to 5.
We could get the food service lotto. What
Well,
if they
and let's
get
be
10?
honest, if we improve our district and we have more participation, that actually increases revenue. So maybe
Sure.
it's not a savings, but it actually increases our revenue, which also.
Oh, and
Yeah.
they tell you also how to increase participation? And
They
all
look
that?
at everything.
They look at everything.
Yes.
So
Okay,
I
as long
think the line number 1 on the right side, for me, is really one of the key parts. So Jessica's on an island. She has her team of leaders, but in terms of really thinking critically about the whole, she's on an island. No one else does her job. And while we could act like we know, I know, I don't know, right? I mean, I've never done the food services work. So I think that's another really essential point in in the same way we're going to talk about transportation. Transportation is our biggest school in the district. We have 70 employees. And this organizational learning piece is a primary function of this process. It is a reality of our work professionally that sometimes we have to look beyond our walls to get that really unique beginner's mind that is hard to generate in the day-to-day work we do. So, but we still need to come back and give you guys more information to make a more informed decision. So, that's my apologies.
Jessica, how much did we lose last year?
100,000?
We didn't lose it. We didn't lose 100,000.
Well, it wasn't.
Yes. The revenues were,
The
we spent more than we brought in,
not-
so participation.
That's not good. I mean, the object of it, because I worked underneath of it, is not to make a lot of money. It's to
Right.
maintain.
Exactly.
But if you can't even put it together to maintain, we in trouble.
Well, and we've got to think of our operational side of it
Yes,
too.
I know.
We've got equipment in some schools that are
Not even
30,
using it.
40 years
Don't
old.
know how to use it, or it's too old. I know.
So,
Okay, thank you.
So we'll come back to you in
Good job.
March, talk further about that and this, really. So, Amy, you can introduce this.
So this is, this consulting firm deals, they'll look at anything, but we're wanting to specifically look at our transportation costs. So transportation is an area that we spend a very large sum of money on over the district. And this particular company works on what you had suggested before on that commission basis. We would not pay anything unless we saved money. So if they came in and they couldn't find us any ways to be more efficient, it would not cost us anything. But in the event that we did, and we truly do feel after we've evaluated and they've talked to us and they've presented to us that we could save somewhere in the 250 to 500,000 over a range of years. And what they will be looking at is on an operational system, but they actually use technology programs that they have built to truly look at algorithms of our transportation services, what we provide, and how we can maybe change those within guidelines. We create the guidelines, they don't, to allow us to save operational costs so that we can then reallocate those funds back into other programs in the district. So I will say that they do not come in and go, hey, I've given you these ideas, you chose not to do them, you have to pay us. We can set the guidelines. We can say we're not going to have more than this many students on a bus. We can say that these.
We're not going to do that. We don't have to do
Yes.
anything, really. But the reality is they wouldn't be interested in working with us if they didn't already know that we had opportunities. So they come in, they analyze your routes, they analyze the systems they're using, and they can, if they're interested, they'll work with you. So they're working with Breckenridge County, Shelby County, some other surrounding districts, and everyone really is in the same place we are. They're interested in learning. They're interested in thinking about technologies that are going to make it more intelligent, because the transportation softwares that are sold by transportation companies like Versatrans and TransFinder aren't really as sophisticated as the stuff that they're using, which is a logistics software that is more aligned to UPS and Amazon. So we've already seen where they can take 5 routes and evaluate how to save fuel costs, evaluate how to save time, evaluate how to save routes if needed. It's complex, so anytime you think about cutting a route, there's so many variables at play. Is it sustainable? Is it going to increase time? Is it going to increase on the bus for kids? Is it going to, do they have to pick up earlier? Can they still get the kids to school on time? All those variables come into play, among others. So there's nothing we would do, there's nothing the transportation department would do that didn't make sense for us.
So this particular company, we would be asking for approval in March to let them come in and start evaluating. That would be what the approval would be for this agreement.
And it's a 45% commission. So it's a significant commission. It's with 0 upfront cost and 0 cost. So essentially, if you don't save money, you don't pay money. If you save $3,000, based on, then
About
they get
$1,400.
Yeah, if you save 100,000, then they get 45,000. If you save 500,000,
But it won't be.
I hope we pay them.
right, exactly.
Exactly. The more we pay, it means the more we
We
save.
save,
We save it
absolutely.
every year.
And when the nice thing about this too is it doesn't add up year to year. So if the first year you save 200,000, you pay it once. If you save 200,000 the next year, the same 200,000, you don't pay.
Exactly.
Only additional
Okay.
increases in savings.
After it's realized?
Right.
So they'll wait that long
Yes.
after they're.
So this would
They
be
do have to,
continuing.
they have to prove.
It's a
that they
3-year
saved
contract.
3 years.
It's a 3-year contract.
So we will be asking for approval at the March board meeting for this one.
Thank you, ladies.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Owen. Good job.
So it is like, you guys will get to make a judgment call here if you want to do 7 minutes of deep learning.
No. Sorry.
We should start with
It's
it.
about as deep as
I don't want deep.
Sounds shallow.
I get up at
I don't
4:30.
I think we,
Let's deep it
so
next time.
maybe we should, I mean, can we just substitute deep learning? Can we just substitute gratitude for somebody in the room? I mean, there's a lot of powerful work going on tonight, or another board member.
If I want to say, something. So it's 10, 11 years now, so the conversations about the academy, at times, and it's happened in our district, where we've said, there have been people that have said, well, those kids have been acting up, why don't we get them out there mowing the yard? Or something like, you know, it's more punitive. But what you're starting to describe to us now is more palliative care. It's really looking out for them, and that's the exciting piece. It really is. Appreciate what you're doing on that, Rob.
I'm thankful for everybody.
You got to pick one person specifically, otherwise it doesn't mean it's something.
Chip, you get my vote, okay? You're welcome, Chip. There you go. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody else
I
has to
am,
speak except
can I say
Chip.
what I'm thankful for? Okay. I am thankful for Amy because I was an asshole tonight and I had tons of questions for you and Chase. Every way, but it was because I had so, I don't care, because I'm sure it is, because I had so many
You might have to
things.
bleep that one
and-
out. Uh-huh.
That's not a cuss word. And because I just want to know.
Yes.
And so I appreciate you all staying this late to really educate me. So thank you for being patient with me.
Just imagine what her husband has.
I don't know.
I second the late motion. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Breeding, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jackie, all in favor? Aye, all opposed, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Wait, is there, they usually leave the meeting, but I need a cat in the hat outfit or something.